You know, when you look around these days, it's really easy to feel like cynicism is the smartest way to see the world. That being suspicious of everyone and everything, that's just being realistic. But what if that's totally wrong? What if our cynicism isn't wisdom at all, but actually a trap? Well, today we're going to dig into the work of psychologist Jamil Zaki and explore a pretty practical guide for rebuilding trust, even when it feels just about impossible.
And look, this isn't just a feeling we have. The numbers are absolutely staggering. Over the last 50 years or so, American trust in major institutions has just fallen off a cliff. I mean, just look at this. Confidence in Congress has cratered from 42% down to a measly 7%. The presidency, newspapers, their trust has been cut by more than half. This isn't just some trend. This is the backdrop of social erosion that makes cynicism feel like the only logical response.
But right against that bleak backdrop, you get this powerful counterpunch. Jamil Zaki argues that in our rush to avoid getting hurt or disappointed, we've way overcorrected. We've become so conditioned to expect the absolute worst in people that we're now basically blind to the good. Let that sink in for a minute. The average person is consistently and incorrectly underestimating the kindness of everyone around them.
So this leads us to this really fundamental question. We're often taught to see cynicism as a shield, right? A sign that you're smart, that you get how the world really works. But what if it's actually a trap? What if instead of making us smarter, it's making us more vulnerable, more isolated, and just fueling this awful self-fulfilling prophecy?
And that's exactly what we're going to explore first, the Cynics smart trap. It's this wild idea that the thing that feels like a sophisticated, realistic worldview can actually lead you down a path to being more easily fooled.
Okay, so this is absolutely key. We tend to lump cynicism and skepticism together, but they are completely different animals. Cynicism is basically a reflex. It's an automatic jump to assuming the worst. Skepticism, though, that's a process. It pays attention to the facts, it questions things, and it's open to being wrong. A skeptic can be convinced by evidence. A cynic, well, they've already made up their mind.
And this is where that trap really snaps shut. It's so counterintuitive, but the research shows that deep cynics, far from being wise, are actually more likely to fall for misinformation and conspiracy theories. Why? Because they're so committed to a negative worldview that they automatically reject positive info, even when it's true. And this just creates this vicious feedback loop. You expect the worst, you act in a way that brings out the worst in others, and then you go, "See, I was right all along."
So just take a second and really think about it. When you approach a new person or a new idea, or even just a news story, what's your default setting? Is it that knee-jerk assumption of cynicism, or is it the curious, questioning stance of skepticism? Because the answer has huge implications for how you see the world, and maybe even more for how the world responds back to you.
So if cynicism is the trap, how in the world do we get out? Well, the answer starts with hope. And I know what you might be thinking, that sounds a little soft, maybe a bit naive, but we need to totally redefine what we mean by hope. This isn't about a passive wish, it's about an active engine for change.
This scientific definition, it's a real game changer. Hope, in this sense, isn't about ignoring your problems. It's a direct response to them. It's the honest acknowledgement that things are not good right now, but it's coupled with the powerful belief that a better reality is actually possible. It's the starting point for pretty much all action. Here's another really critical distinction. Optimism is often passive, right? It's this belief that things will just sort of work out on their own. But practical hope is active. It's the belief that things could work out if, and that's the big if we do something about it. It's the difference between being a passenger and grabbing the steering wheel. So, here's the bottom line. Practical hope is what gets us out of bed when things are tough. It's the energy source that allows us to imagine a better future, and then it gives us the kick in the pants we need to start building it. It's not about ignoring reality, it's about having the guts to try and change it. Okay, so if hope is the fuel, what's the vehicle? Well, that brings us to our third big idea, trust. But not as a passive feeling. We're going to explore how the act of trusting someone can actually create the very trustworthiness we're looking for. It's all about the power of taking that leap of faith. This classic experiment, the public goods game, just explains perfectly why trust collapses. So imagine you're in this game. If everyone contributes to a common fund, the whole pot doubles and everybody wins. Simple, right? But here's the catch. One person can be a free rider, contributing nothing but still taking their share. And pretty soon, the fear of being the sucker, the one chump who keeps contributing, it causes everyone else to pull back, and the whole system collapses. Not because people are greedy, but because of the fear that's born from cynicism. So what's the hack?
How do you break this cycle? It's something called the reciprocity mindset. And this completely reframes the idea of trust. It's not a prediction of someone's behavior anymore, it's an investment in it. It's this powerful idea that our expectations actually shape how people act. When we treat people with suspicion, we invite that same suspicion back. But when we treat them as if they're trustworthy, we give them a reason to live up to that belief.
Yeah, this builds on Hemingway's famous quote, but Zaki's work adds this crucial layer. Trust doesn't just reveal someone's character, it helps shape it. When you extend trust, you're not just passively testing them, you are actively giving them a reason to be their best self. You're basically co-creating the reality of that interaction.
Okay, but let's be real. Constantly choosing hope and trust, especially when it's hard, it can be draining. So where do we find the energy for all this? Well, that brings us to our final and maybe the most surprising idea, the power of other care, as the true antidote to the burnout that fuels our cynicism. You know, we hear so much about self-care, and don't get me wrong, it's important for managing exhaustion. But burnout isn't just being tired. It's also a loss of purpose, it's a rise in cynicism, and the research shows that self-care doesn't really fix that part. Other care, the act of helping and connecting with other people, that is what restores our sense of meaning. In some studies, it's the only thing that actually decreased cynicism.
And this isn't just a nice theory. The evidence is everywhere. Volunteers who help counsel others report feeling less depressed themselves. Students feel less lonely on the days they help out a friend. You even see it in powerful historical examples, like the Black Panther Party survival programs. This wasn't just charity. It was an active community building that fought the cynical idea that no one cares. Helping others is a profound way to remind ourselves that we matter and that our connections matter.
And if you're still not convinced, if you need a real bottom-line dollars and cents number, here it is. Economists have actually calculated that the boost in your personal well-being from living in a high-trust community is the same as getting a 40% raise. That is not a small number. That is the real tangible value of rebuilding trust.
So, that's where we'll leave it. The core message here is that cynicism is not some fixed reality we just have to accept. It's a choice. Hope isn't a weakness. It's a practical tool. And our trust isn't just a gamble, it's an act of creation. So the real question isn't whether the world out there is trustworthy. It's what kind of world you are willing to help build.